Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a new documentary on Netflix called Oklahomacitybombing, American Terror. And this is about, of course, the Oklahoma City bombing that took place April 19th, 1995 at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal building in Oklahoma City. So before we get into the documentary, I'm going to read a synopsis so we can get an overall look, and then we'll dive in deeper. So on the morning of April 19th, 1995, an ex-Army soldier and security guard named timothymcveigh parked a rented Ryder truck in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal building in downtown Oklahoma City. He was about to commit mass murder. Inside the vehicle was a powerful bomb made out of a deadly cocktail of agricultural fertilizer, diesel fuel, and other chemicals. McVeigh got out, locked the door, and headed towards his getaway car. He ignited one timed fuse and then another. At precisely 9:02 a.m., the bomb exploded. Within moments, the surrounding area looked like a war zone. A third of the building had been reduced to rubble, with many floors flattened like pancakes. Dozens of cars were incinerated, and more than 300 nearby buildings were damaged or destroyed. The human toll was still more devastating. 168 souls lost, including 19 children with several hundred more injured. It was the worst act of homegrown terrorism in the nation's history. Coming on the heels of the World Trade Center bombings in New York 2 years earlier, the media and many Americans immediately assumed that the attack was the handiwork of Middle Eastern terrorists. The FBI, meanwhile, quickly arrived at the scene and began supporting rescue efforts and investigating the facts. Beneath the pile of concrete and twisted steel were clues, and the FBI was determined to find them. It didn't take long. On April 20th, the rear axle of the Ryder truck was located, which yielded a vehicle identification number that was traced to a body shop in Junction City, Kansas. Employees at the shop helped the FBI quickly put together a composite drawing of the man who had rented the van. Agents showed the drawing around town, and local hotel employees supplied a name, Tim McVeigh. A quick call to the Bureau's Criminal Justice Information Services Division in West Virginia on April 21st led to an astonishing discovery. McVeigh was already in jail. He'd been pulled over about 80 miles north of Oklahoma City by an observant Oklahoma State trooper who noticed a missing license plate on his yellow Mercury Marquis. McVeigh had concealed a weapon and was arrested. It was just 90 minutes after the bombing. From there, the evidence began adding up. Agents found traces of the chemicals used in the explosion on McVeigh's clothes and a business card on which McVeigh had suspiciously scribbled TNT at $5 a stick, need more. They learned about McVeigh's extremist ideologies and his anger over the events at Waco 2 years earlier. They discovered that a friend of McVeigh's named terrynichols helped build the bomb and that another man, Michaelfortier, was aware of the bomb plot. The bombing was quickly solved, but the investigation turned out to be one of the most exhaustive in FBI history. No stone was left unturned to make sure every clue was found and all the culprits identified. By the time it was over, the Bureau had conducted more than 28,000 interviews, followed some 43,000 investigative leads, amassed 3.5 tons of evidence, and reviewed nearly 1 billion pieces of information. In the end, the government that McVeigh hated and hoped to topple swiftly captured him and convincingly convicted both him and his co-conspirators.
This is a very pro-America enforcement.
This is from the FBI's website. So
they're making themselves the heroes.
They're making and I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I was impressed with the swiftness of, they did solve this thing very quickly. And a couple caveats, when we are doing, these true crime stories, we're always very mindful about the presumption of innocence and about, not just rushing to judgment about people, but I have to break precedent with this one because one, he confessed, and there's no doubt that he did this, and he was given due process,
Yes.
he had given a trial.
Unlike today. Yes.
You're right. Unlike what's happening now. And, while I don't believe in the death penalty, this, I think, warrants, the most serious of punishments allowed under the law. Although, I can't be mad at it. I don't necessarily agree with it. But my God, this man was a monster.
Yeah. Well, I will say, though, I mean, terrorism, they saw a bomb, assumed it was terrorism, and went right to Middle Eastern. I mean, come on. For the first 24 hours or 36 hours, that's what was being reported.
Oh, yeah. They had on the TV, it said the suspects are these three
or four Middle Eastern men.
And with a vague description, 25 to 35. And no, that part was disturbing. But the first World Trade Center attack, not 9/11, but obviously, but the first one had happened 2 years before. So we're already on this Middle Eastern thing. We had been through the Iraq War. Timothy McVeigh served in the first Iraq War. So, that was the underpinning of, that was the public sentiment. And, we saw those people saying, after there was all these tips coming into the FBI hotline, people claiming they saw Middle Eastern people running away from the scene, and these Middle Eastern people and these Middle Eastern women were acting weird, So that racist part of it was
and the one woman on the news channel that said, "I can't tell them apart. They all look alike." It's like, oh Lordy,
yeah. No, but this is my favorite type of documentary. When you go back like 30 years, like a long time has gone by, and you re-examine something that happened through, a new lens of today. To me, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. Yeah. It's just, and a lot of the themes in this documentary, we're reliving them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what was kind of scary about it was, is how in some ways not much has changed. It doesn't feel like a lot has changed since then, in terms of, this anti-government, guns, all of it. I will say that I got so many of these stories mixed up. Now, in my defense, I was in college during this time. I was in college during Waco, and I was graduating from college during the Oklahoma City bombing. So very involved in myself. But, and I was not obviously watching the news and paying attention all that much, but I kept getting so many things mixed up. I kept getting like Timothy McVeigh mixed up with Ted Kaczynski. I'm like, didn't he have a beard? Wasn't there a manifesto? I mean, I was getting so confused. And I thought before we started recording, I was saying to you, Waco, I thought it was this David Koresh, and it was a cult. And I think in my mind, I had gotten it mixed up. Like, but didn't they all weren't they all wearing Nike shoes and taking?
No, that was a different cult.
That was that they all killed themselves and they found a bunch of people. I thought it was then. I did not realize that Waco was this big, it sounds like, the FBI really screwed up here.
Overreached.
That's a good way of saying it. That they really overreached and that they made a huge error, and a lot of people died and children died as well. But I didn't realize that was sort of seen as this anti-government, you know what I mean? This symbol of being anti-government. And it just all was very surprising to me because I kept getting. Now, tell me, Ted Kaczynski, why do I keep thinking? Okay, the Unabomber. Thank you. And what year was that?
I think it was around the same time.
Yeah. Okay, this is why I was getting all confused.
Yeah, he was sending bombs through the mail to government officials, and it was. and his manifestos, and living out in a shack in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. And so that's what I kept getting those two guys mixed up, but they are different.
They're very different. Yeah.
Both mentally ill, but different.
Yeah.
All right.
And also the thing that was, I think, was the worst part about this story. I mean, well, it's all bad, but I think the thing that really kind of captured everyone's attention was the daycare center.
Yes.
Because that really became like the thing that just, that's what I think of when I think of Oklahoma. I think of all those little babies in the daycare center, 19 little.
Yeah, so it's interesting because he picked, I mean, I guess we didn't get any history of like, why Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Why, if this happened in Waco, Texas, why wouldn't it happen in Texas? So why Oklahoma? Why this particular, because it sounds like there were several federal buildings, and why this one?
Well, yeah, there's federal buildings in every big city. Yeah. Where was he? What state was he in? He wasn't.
He rented the truck in Kansas.
But where was he living?
I don't know if he was really living anywhere.
Because Terrynichols was.
That's right. He was living in the house with Terrynichols and his brother.
Yeah. So they were in Michigan, Decker, Michigan.
Okay.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Tim lived with Terry and his brother in Michigan. Yeah. They never addressed that. Why didn't they pick a federal building in Michigan, in Detroit or
Texas or somewhere, right? If this was about Waco and you want to make a point about that, why not?
Maybe he picked it because of the child care center.
You think? Because
that'd be pretty twisted, but I put it past him.
Because how is that I mean, I understand. I don't understand. I'm not condoning it, but I understand if you feel like it's anti-government, okay, you're going to pick a government building. And I understand like the ATF was in there. It was a lot of, there was,
HUD, the Social Security Office, ATF, Secret Service.
And it just so happened that this building also had a daycare.
Mm-hmm.
But why that one? Why pick this one versus another one?
They didn't explain that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. What should we do? Should we go through like what happened that day? It's kind of interesting because it starts out, there's a lot of, this is very kind of eerie. It starts out with, there was this woman who had videotaped, it's because the bomb went off at 9:02. So everyone's just getting to work. They're settling in. And this girl I think she just started on the job. So she's taking a video of, she's walking around going, oh, this is Cheryl. And, to show her mom that this is where she's working. She's a new job or something. And she's going around saying hi to everybody and, making this video. And then the bomb goes off. And I don't know what, obviously this video was preserved. This is before FaceTime. She's not FaceTiming her.
Yeah.
This is honestly before most people had cell phones. This is 1995.
Oh yeah. No one had cell phones, but I thought, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, how is this going to work if, how did they preserve this video? I got the sense that this video was taken a few years before. Like,
I thought it was that day.
No, I feel like it was not the same day.
Okay. So she'd already sent it to her mother.
Or it existed somewhere outside.
But on the video was one of the women they featured. That woman,
Amy Downs.
Yeah. Amy Downs, the one who survived. So maybe that's what the purpose of that was. Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But we meet a lot of different people. We meet Amy Downs, who survived because she worked at the credit union.
She was buried alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also meet Robin Marsh, who was a reporter at Channel 9 in Oklahoma, and she was just starting her career. And, this was the first big story. We meet Carl, who is an ER doctor who just happened to be, I guess he was a trauma specialist,
an ER doctor,
and he just happened to be. He went out to breakfast somewhere near there, and he just happened to be near the scene. So we meet them. We meet an FBI. We meet an FBI agent. We meet all of these. Each person kind of representing a different group of people, that what their experience was like and what they saw. We meet Renee, who lost her 6-month-old son, Antonio, in the daycare. I thought overall I liked this documentary. I thought they did a good job of sort of giving you the facts and the information of what happened, but also the human element of it without it being too much, too disturbing, too over and over again. I think it was hard enough watching Renee talk about Tony. I'm like, oh, I'm glad we didn't have a bunch of parents. I don't think I could handle that. Just, each kind of person represented what their experience was like.
Right.
I think what was really surprising, you don't watch that show, The Pit, right? You didn't watch that.
I've never seen it.
It's really, I have to say, it's very good. It's on HBO Max, and it's about an ER medicine doctors who work in the ER in Pittsburgh. And in towards the end of the season, there is a mass casualty. And they show you in very intense episodes of what it's like to deal with that. And this is a lot of what this doctor was talking about, of like how you have to triage.
Yeah. There's decisions you have to make, like who are you going to treat or not treat, because it's a lost cause.
And obviously 30 years later, all of it still weighs heavy on this ER doctor.
He retired. Well, he retired after 20 years, and now he sells real estate. So
yes, I know. I was like,
probably,
God.
he just got burnt out on. Yes. It's so. Yeah, I was really. Obviously, I have seen the photos of it, but in the video, but for some reason, I don't remember the scope of the destruction being so. I don't know if it was that these are videos. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I wasn't watching TV either because
you were in law. Were you in law school?
I was in law school in 1993. There was a period of time when I was in law school that I didn't have a TV at all for like 2 years. I never watched TV. And there were no computers. I mean, not like we have now. You couldn't watch video. Like now something happens and we're just watching this shit over and over and over. And the graphic nature. I don't recall seeing this kind of graphic coverage of this. The scope of the devastation to the building, the scope of like all these people coming out of the building, like bloody and half dead. And I was like, wow, like, we didn't have that kind of exposure to.
Yeah, this was before the 24-hour news cycle. I think that's the other part of it too, is, as I was saying, like I was in college, we're college kids, like we weren't really watching the news. There wasn't an internet.
No,
so there were no phones. Like we weren't getting this information. So we would only get it. I'm a kid. Like I'm not buying newspapers. It is really interesting how news works. Like how easy it is to be removed from everything that's going on in the world. You hear about it, but if you're not looking at a newspaper, if you're not watching the nightly news, you're not seeing anything.
But even on the nightly news or a newspaper, like there's only so much they can show. There's no, like a newspaper article about it would have, I don't know, half a dozen pictures maybe. On the nightly news, what you would get like the top news story of the day only gets like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And they're not showing this. It's not like today where you see these tragedies being filmed around the clock from all these different angles, and everyone has cameras. So everyone is catching every angle and moment and everything. So yeah, we did not experience these things the way we do now. And like, even just they showed an aerial photo where just seeing the amount of smoke and this black smoke, which must have been from the truck. And then you just see how the half of the building was just ripped off, and it was all concrete. So it all came down like pancakes, until there was nowhere else for it to go, and crushed all these people. And this woman, Amy, was buried alive.
Yeah.
And by some miracle, they were able to rescue her and get her out of there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No, that is very unbelievable, because I don't think anybody else survived, like on her floor where she was. I mean, I don't know. It was almost like they found her upside down, like still sitting in her chair.
Yeah. She'd been like flipped upside down and then trapped by cement. Like, and then she had like all this cement rubble. She was buried in rubble on top of her.
Yeah.
So, real miracle.
All right. Well, so this happens, and the bomb goes off, and I think it's the news media figures out, like, wait a second, April 19th, that's a 2-year anniversary of Waco. Is there some kind of connection? What's going on? And I guess, again, I didn't know this, but, in Waco, I guess they had gotten, so is this what happened? They got a tip that David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, they were amassing a tremendous amount of illegal weapons. And so the FBI felt like they had to go in, and they were trying to force them out. And I guess there was this standoff. I didn't realize there was a standoff on all these days. Like, and then it was on the 19th when they put the tear gas in. And a fire.
Started this huge fire. Yeah. So the Branch Davidian was sort of, I've always felt like it was half of a cult, half, it was culty, because there was all these women and children in there that they claimed that the reason they were going in initially, from what I recall, was like, oh, there's women and children in there. But I think it was really because of this, because they were amassing all these guns, and maybe they had already caught wind, the FBI had already caught wind of, this is a anti-America, terror group, and they were trying to diffuse that. They were like, oh no, we can't have this out here in Texas,
Yeah.
So they had a 5-day siege where they were trying to get all these people to come out, and they're communicating with Koresh from inside and trying to negotiate. And then there was like this shootout that started, and then they started tear gassing, and then the fire broke out. 76 people, including 22 kids, died.
So whatever happened to David Koresh? Did he die in that, or was he killed, or was he arrested? I can't even remember.
No, I think he died. I'm not sure if it was from being shot or in the fire.
Okay.
But he did not survive that.
Okay. Got it. So, and so after that, there were a number of protests. And I think this is the other thing too, because it sounds like a lot of the protests were happening more in Texas, right? Like, that was the other thing too, is I didn't realize there were all these protests against the US, that there were a lot of these groups that were fighting back against government, and
I think
the government being involved. Yeah. Was it everywhere? Because I don't remember.
I think anyone, anywhere in the country, it wasn't just Texas. I think it was anyone who was of the mind that the government was trying to infringe on people's right to bear arms was involved. Like, people were forming militias, these extreme right-wing groups, anti-government groups. They were kind of organizing all over the country. And they show Janet Reno, who was the attorney general at the time, and she kind of brushed it off. Like, she didn't think anyone really cared about this, or I think she underestimated
the importance of it.
And we see it playing out again today. The government did not want to talk about Waco.
Yeah.
They wanted to sweep it under the rug.
Well, we hear from one of the FBI guys who I guess was part of Waco and part of Oklahoma City bombing, which is, he was like, that was a very dark time, a very dark note for the FBI. And it's like, yeah, they don't want to draw attention because it sounds like they're not admitting it, but obviously they screwed up something. They screwed up. They went in too quickly. All of it.
Yeah, it wasn't handled well, but I mean, in a situation like that nothing, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people on one side who aren't afraid to die. You know, like a lot of those Branch Davidian people, I think that was part of it. They weren't afraid to die. They were in this cult and they were willing to die for this. And so the FBI can try to negotiate with them all they want, but you know, they didn't care, it seemed.
What did the Branch Davidians want? Or what did they think was going to... Why were they amassing all of these guns? Do we know? Did they think there was going to be like
against the government?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the same reason people justify today wanting to, you know, the right to bear arms. And, you know, in the Constitution, it says, you know, that, the right to bear arms in order to form a militia to fight against the U.S. government in case they come after you. But that's not really happening. But it's the same mindset.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was, we find out later, you know, that this was one of McVeigh's, you know, he was one of these people who was of the mindset that, you know, the government was trying to take people's guns, trying to take people's rights, their gun rights, property rights, getting into conspiracy theories. And I thought it was super ironic that, you know, McVeigh fought in the military voluntarily, you know. And so if you when did he start hating the government? Like
when he got back.
Why would you? Yeah, I don't know. But I guess because he said he felt that when he was in the Army, he didn't like how the Army had total control over him and told him what to do. And I just kept thinking, what did you think you were signing up for? Do you not understand how this works? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I guess we learned towards the end of the documentary about McVeigh and his life, and that I guess he's very tall, but I guess he was skinny when he was a kid, and he was kind of shorter. And so he was bullied a lot and teased a lot. And he, it sounds like he had a lot of trauma from being bullied. And on top of that, he also really had a fascination with guns. And I think that there is just, right, it's this whole idea of, are people like Timothy McVeigh, are they born or are they bred? You know, how does this work? Was he born this way? And I think he was someone who was a little quirky. You know, I think he was socially awkward for why, I don't know. I mean, for whatever reason, I think he was socially awkward. I think he was bullied very early. And he also had this fascination with guns. And I think my guess would be this is just my own conjecture. I don't know, but I think there was something about him feeling like he went to the Iraq War. I'm going to fight for my country. And I get the sense that when he got back, there was what happens to a lot of people, which is, even though he hated the fact that the military was controlling him, he comes back and you're sort of like, okay, you know, what do I do now? Right? Like, I don't know. Did he go to college? So he's back here. He's trying to figure out what to do with his life. He just spent several years fighting in a war. Right. Like, and I think that he just now he had something to fight for again. Right.
Yeah. They get into that towards the end, this sort of profile of him.
Of who he was.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the site.
Yes.
You know, they're searching for people. At one point they found what they thought was another bomb and they made everybody evacuate. Turned out it was a training bomb because the ATF office was there and they had some sort of, so that was a false alarm. So they go back in, they rescue Amy. They're like chainsawing their way through this concrete. I mean, then the scene is just unreal. It's just all concrete and rebar.
I know.
And it just looked like impenetrable. Like how could you get through any of it? And then of course there's like, we saw this in 9/11 where you blow up an office building, there's like papers everywhere. Papers are flying everywhere. And it looks like it's snow on the ground because there's like all these papers. And it is just a gruesome, gruesome scene. And so the guy from the FBI was saying that when you have a bombing, a lot of the evidence gets destroyed in the bombing.
Yes.
And any evidence that remains gets thrown like blocks away, so their crime scene is not just around the building. It's like a 10 square block area, because stuff goes flying. And in fact, the axle from the truck went flying several blocks away, where they eventually found it. And that's when they found that axle, they were able to get the VIN number, off of the axle. And that's how they traced it back to where it was rented in Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty amazing. I mean, the fact that I can't imagine how much debris and how much stuff and chaos and all of that they were able to spot that. I still was a little unclear about that because one guy goes, oh, and then I spotted the axle or they brought me over. And then, but it was like, how do you know that there were so many cars? Other cars got blown up. How do you know that axle is connected to the car that was blown up?
Yeah, because
that's the part I didn't understand.
There were other cars parked around there. Obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that it sounded to me like wherever the axle landed, somebody alerted the FBI. And the FBI, because obviously the most damage to any vehicle would be the truck.
Yes.
So they probably thought, well, there's a high likelihood that came from the truck. So they reported it, that they went over. A lot of the stuff, the FBI, I think, did very good work in this case, but they also had a lot of lucky breaks.
Yeah, I also think that I think I'm remembering this now, that they were able, that it was the right axle because they suspected it was the axle because it had moved so far away from, right? It was the distance. It was like, it was this combination of distance. But I didn't realize, this is another thing I didn't realize that all of these auto parts have serial numbers. I mean, I can imagine, okay, you have to track parts and you want this and you're an auto body shop. But I guess I never thought like, oh, that's right. So, and I guess McVeigh didn't understand that, or he didn't really cover his tracks very well.
Well, he probably didn't think that meticulously. I mean, it was probably a combination of being arrogant and also maybe not knowing that, I don't know, you can't account for everything. There's no perfect crime. He's not a sophisticated criminal. This is his first crime. Way to start. But so they bring in this sketch artist, expecting to get like a profile of some Middle Eastern.
Yeah, they were expecting the 3 or 4 Middle Eastern people.
So they talk to the people at the rental place, and they find also, they put out some kind of bulletin or something to the hotels in the area.
Yes.
And they find out that someone did check in with this truck or something, and they checked in as Robert Kling, and that was a name that kept coming up. That was the name McVeigh was using. So they do this sketch artist, and so one of the sketches is of McVeigh, and then the other sketch, who was that guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
He wasn't. I mean, McVeigh did this alone at the scene. I mean, he had.
Because I think what happened was they interviewed 2 or 3 different people in the rental shop and said, tell me what you remember. And so apparently one person remembered it really well and another person remembered
not at all
else.
Because that guy looked nothing like McVeigh, and we never saw that guy.
Psych Legal Pop, we'll be back after these messages.
Yeah, so then they show the horror that the families have to go through waiting, there's bad weather, and it just...
Oh, yeah, it starts to rain that night.
Any news.
Well, and just everyone who was there, the nurses and the doctors and people like rushing. I mean, that's the other part of it, too, is a lot of them had to rush into the rubble and risk their own lives.
Yeah.
And I guess a nurse died at one point. She rushed in and didn't come out. And I mean, it's just... Ugh.
Yeah, I remember thinking, God, these first responders, they just run into these situations without any regard to their own life or safety or anything. I mean, they are truly heroes. This documentary really has me going rah rah America. not the America of today, but the America of 1995 or whatever this was.
And I think that's the guy that was the trauma surgeon, Carl. I just never wrote his last name down. So sorry, I called him Dr. something. But I think that he, if you really think about what that work entails and what it does to you should really watch The Pit. And
no, I want to.
How incredibly difficult it is, because he does talk about having to make a decision between a woman and a child. And basically people were pissed with him because he basically said the child was still alive, but is not going to make it. We're not going to give this child a spot. But this woman right here, she can actually make it. And he got into trouble and he started crying 30 years. I mean, it still haunts him to this day. But yeah, it takes a tremendous amount. Back to the whole thing with the second bomb, Amy realizes that she's buried alive. And I can't imagine what that feeling is. She said it was the most awful feeling ever, just realizing it. And they find her. She's calling out. They find her. They get, they figure out where she is. They're starting to rescue her. And all of a sudden they found another bomb. And then everyone's leaving. And she's having to, like she said, it was in that moment. She was like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Like she really thought I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And that obviously it changed her life, but talk about having a second chance at something. She just really was like, I can't take anything for granted now. And
she said she started thinking about her whole life, which, you would. You're in there in the rubble, like, I'm going to die. You start assessing your life. And she started thinking about all the things that she wanted to do and she never did. And then cut to modern day here. She really did. She became a motivational speaker.
She became CEO. She became CEO of the credit union.
Yeah, of the credit union where she was working in that building. And then she became a mom, which was something that she had regretted not doing. So I'm like, wow.
And she became a triathlete and she lost a lot of weight. I don't know how much of that was interconnected, but she looked great. And she just, it was life-changing.
Yeah.
But the fact that they went in there, she thought she was going to die. And then when they realized that other bomb was not real, then these first responders were like, we got to go back in. They
immediately went back to her. Yeah.
They got her and they got her out. That's the part that's just unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well, in the meantime, timothymcveigh is in jail.
Yes, he didn't plan this out where he gets on he's leaving.
He has a getaway car.
There's a getaway car, but it doesn't have license plates on the back. It's like, dumb. Why wouldn't you have, wouldn't that draw a lot of attention?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like an hour after the bombing. He's tooling down the highway. This, sheriff's deputy or whatever sees him, no license plate, pulls him over, and McVeigh has a gun on him. And so he gets arrested. He takes him to the jail. And he said that normally on a misdemeanor, whatever, I guess, I don't know why carrying a concealed weapon is only a misdemeanor, but that normally he would have been out very quickly.
The next day.
By the next day, he would have bonded out. Well, because of the Oklahoma City tragedy, it got delayed because they couldn't, because the courts are closed and they couldn't, process him or do whatever they're going to do. So he had to stay in jail. And so luckily, as they're figuring out and tracing, okay, well, who was this guy who rented the truck? Who was this guy who was staying in the hotel? And they matched him up, and then they got a name, and then they put it in this database. And it was so weird that the technology at the time was such low tech, They're showing us their rudimentary computer and tracing system, which something that should have taken about 5 seconds.
Yeah, in today's world, it would have taken 5 seconds.
Took several hours. But anyway, they got a hit and they found out that he was in custody.
He's in custody.
He's in custody and he's in court right now at the Perry County Courthouse, an hour away, being processed. He's like 30 minutes from walking out the door.
Yep.
And they say, whoa. You're not going anywhere. So then the address that is on all of these, documents, is in Decker, Michigan. And so they're like, well, let's go to this place. This is now 2 days after the bombing. And they get there, and this is James and Terry Nichols' home where they live, where Tim McVeigh was living with them at the time. And they arrest Nichols.
Well, they found him, because he wasn't there. No one was in the house when they got there. So Terry Nichols had been living somewhere else with a woman and her children or something. I don't know if these were his kids or what. But yeah. And so
they figure it out. Did they arrest him at that time, or they found him at the place with the woman? They arrested him.
Yeah, well, they started following him, and he gets clocked. He realizes that they're following him, and I think he kind of just gives himself up. I think he realizes, like, maybe this is the best thing to do. So he gives himself up, and of course they start to tie Nichols, Tim McVeigh. Still, they're both served at the same unit. Were in Iraq and shared a lot of the same beliefs.
Yeah, the anti-government.
And that was the other thing too, is even, I guess they said even in the military, I guess McVeigh didn't really, he didn't fit in there either. And I think that's the other part of it too, which is here was this kid who probably felt like, I'm misunderstood. I don't fit in. No one likes me. I'll go into the military and that'll make me feel good about myself, or, fix whatever.
I'll be respected.
I'll be respected, and it'll fix whatever the pain that I have inside of me from being bullied. And then I think he gets there and he makes these friends, but they're all sort of, they didn't get along. Like he wasn't liked by his group, but he was only really connected to these two other men. I think that was another layer.
I have here in my notes, now I see this, Nichols turned himself in.
Yes. Because he just got out of the car. He knew they were following him.
Yeah. And so now they know they have the bomber. And so they're going to transport him to an Air Force base they're transferring him from this little county courthouse to Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. And so he says, well, and there's crowds of people now have gathered outside. And he says, can I have a bulletproof vest? And they say no. And he doesn't even have shoes on. And so they bring him out. And there's people out there, yelling "baby killer" and
they're booing him,
and he's just a walking target.
Yeah, but they did ensure that he was, because they had snipers and all that. I mean, no one tried to take a shot at him, so he was able to make it.
But people were hoping that they would. Like, they were interviewing people who were saying stuff like, "Yeah, I hope someone just kills him," or "If I had my gun, I'd kill him." Or, people were like really rabid.
But they wanted, obviously your job is to keep them alive, but I think that was the other part of it too, was people wanted to see justice. They wanted to see what was going to...
Swift justice,
yes.
Yeah. And so then they talked to McVeigh's father, Bill, who seems to just be like this normal, mild-mannered guy, and he's cooperative. And then he says... he kind of gives him up. He says that this guy, Michael Fortier, who was also in their squad in the Army, Nichols and McVeigh, they would have done this together. And then they got a calling card. Remember calling cards, anyone?
Oh, yeah.
The only way you could make a long distance call is if you had this calling card that you got from like AT&T or your, phone provider. And you had to put in about 17,000 numbers in the right order, and it never worked,
Oh, God, I remember that. Yeah.
Always so complicated. And anyway, they had this calling card, and they traced where they were purchasing components for the bomb. So that was, again, they didn't do a very good job of covering their tracks. I mean, how did they get a hold of that calling card?
I don't know. That was a little, I really don't know.
I feel like maybe they found it with his stuff or something. Anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to look up stuff about Tim McVeigh's family. I guess was he an only child? Or maybe he had a sister or something. I always thought he had this brother, but maybe I'm getting him mixed up with Ted Kaczynski again. Did Ted Kaczynski's
brother turned him in?
Okay, and that he's written about this. Okay, that's why I kept thinking, doesn't he have a brother that keep getting these two mixed up?
No,
all right.
No. Okay. I don't know if he
so. Yeah, but I mean, that was it. Tells you a lot about McVeigh and his family that they called the dad, and the dad turns him in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a little bit of this. Isn't like the family wasn't all anti-government. They weren't talking about this. That this was very much McVeigh and a series of perfect storm of situations. Anyway.
Yeah. So then they tracked down this Michael Fortier, and he was not involved in the bombing. He was living in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
He was not involved in making the bomb or anything having to do with the bombing, but he knew what they were doing. He knew about this plot. They told him.
All he needed to do was send an anonymous tip.
Yes. He could have prevented the whole thing, but he didn't. So he took a plea deal to, testify against them, and he only ended up getting like 10 years or something. I have it at the end here, but God, that fucker, like what? Yeah, all he just called the anonymous tip line. You don't even have to identify yourself.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is they knew they needed him, right? They needed 48, and because he was sort of like the least, he was in Arizona, he wasn't the one making the bombs, he knew about it. They had to, make a deal with him, and I guess he only did 10 years, and then I was like, how did he survive prison? And then, but then it was like, I guess he and his wife, she stood by him, are now in witness protection somewhere. And I was like, they're going to have to, because I don't think people were going to let I was just kind of surprised that nothing happened to him. And I'm kind of surprised this Nichols guy, is he still alive? I mean, he's doing a life sentence without parole plus an additional 161 life sentences. Yes.
Just in case anything goes wrong and on appeal.
I was like, wow, does that seem like overkill here? But they really want to make sure
he never gets out.
But I wonder, like, does he must have to sit in a cell like 23 hours a day. Like, what are these supermax prisons? Aren't they like 23 hours a day?
Solitary confinement.
I'm sure he's alone every day.
23 and a half hours a day.
And I guess he gets to see sunlight a little bit.
Probably no visitors. That's probably why they did that sentence. But so then there was this reporter, Lou Michel, reporter in Buffalo, who interviewed McVeigh. And he said that he, thought, again, like you were talking about, he was bullied. He was very thin and small when he was a kid. He had no friends, no relationship with a woman, fit the description of a school shooter. Guns made him feel secure, trying to be this macho military guy. He got the Bronze Star in Iraq because he killed some people, I guess. But McVeigh described it as, when he was in the military, his freedom was taken away. He had to follow orders. He had, if they told him, go kill these people, he had to go kill these people, So, and then McVeigh describes, because this must have been a taped interview with this reporter where McVeigh is kind of going off on, and he has no remorse. Look, this guy has no remorse. He admits freely everything. You know what I mean? There's no whodunit here. And this is not a coerced, confession or anything like this. This guy is just, he wants you to know.
Yeah.
He wants you to know. And he said he felt lost when he came back home, and he wanted to explore fundamental rights, gun rights, and property rights. And then this reporter describes how he was basically driving around the country, going from gun show to gun show, listening to right-wing radio.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, with all the conspiracy theories and all the government's going to take our guns away. So he's just indoctrinating himself.
Yeah, he's looking for something to believe in. And now he's got something to believe in and a goal. And I guess he was one of the people that went to Waco, because we see a video of him outside of Waco.
Yeah.
So
he was there.
So, it's almost a little bit like, yeah, he was getting indoctrinated, and then there's Waco, or maybe Waco's part of it. And then he's like, he puts this plan together.
Well, and he was obsessed with this book called The Turner Diaries. And it's written by this guy, William Pierce, who's a neo-Nazi white supremacist. And in the book, they call it the Bible for the right wing. This person, the main character, he's leading an insurrection against the federal government, and he blows up an FBI building with a car bomb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the whole...
It wasn't even his idea. He's
like, a book I love? Idea. I love the Turner Diaries. So this is what I need to do. I'm just going to model my life after the Turner Diaries. Yeah, I mean, but in the book, apparently, it describes like how to make a car bomb. I mean, talk about like, talk about like just, he was just a conduit. Do you know what I mean? It didn't feel like any of these ideas were his. None of it really rang true. He was looking for something, and everything was taken. Everything was taken from something else. And the other thing that I was so confused about, and I don't feel like the documentary spent a lot of time on this, but okay, what were you thinking was going to happen? Like, okay, you're anti-government, you want to make a statement, Turner Diaries, blowing up FBI headquarters, but what was the purpose of it? Why? What did you think was going to happen?
Where is it going to get you?
Yeah. And so, did he, I guess my understanding from the documentary was that he thought it was going to start some kind of riot or be the thing that starts. I mean, did he think a bunch of militias were going to come out from the underground and it was going to be this big fight between these militias and the government? I mean, what were you hoping was going to happen?
Well, and the way he was pretty sloppy and lazy with, how he executed this, I kind of think maybe he wanted to get caught. Like he wanted to become a martyr for these people. Because so he's doing this thing where this is like retaliation for Waco. And I think he thought that he was going to become the hero for these people.
Yeah.
And the documentary didn't really get into that. I don't know how did those people receive him? The anti-gun, anti-government people, do they think he's a hero? Do they think...
I don't know. I don't listen to any of those shows.
Yeah,
I've never heard of the Turner Diaries.
Or Rush Limbaugh. That's a throwback. But, I don't know who these people are on the radio. I don't listen to them. But I don't know. I mean, gosh.
But he thought it would start a revolution. I mean, is he considered a cult hero amongst the right wing? I mean, I don't know. But it really did nothing. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like, because what happened was that one thing the documentary does talk about is that, the bombing happened on the 19th. And then on the 20th, it was like the what they saw from the city, the people that live there, people set up stations where all the first responders and everyone, all the nurses and doctors, there was food. They wouldn't take any money from you. They just made sure that everyone that was working down there had everything. Huge lines for blood banks, for blood. That's what they talked about, is that it got the city to come together and rally. And, it gave them that feeling of unity, which wasn't what Timothy McVeigh was looking for at all.
No. No. Yeah, and then he caps this, interview off with saying, his message to the victims of this is that you're not the first person to lose a loved one. Shut the fuck up. You're nobody special. Get over it. I mean, this guy really just...
Trust me, he feels the world has wounded him. He is so, just what you're talking about, martyr, a bit of a martyr. Like, he is so wounded. You think you're the only person in the world that's ever been bullied, that's ever had a rough time of it. You don't think you're the only person who's ever been lost in the world. I mean, all of it. It's just, it's, you weren't going to become well-known or famous for anything else. Right? I mean, it was just a little bit like...
Well, unfortunately, this scenario is becoming more and more... I mean, there's always been people like him, but I feel like this scenario is becoming worse and worse, these are the school shooters. These are the, the people who, this is all of this, the people, young men, let's not just say people, who feel like they haven't been given, the perfect life of, they're not getting laid and women are rejecting them. And it's not, just try being nice, I mean, just try being a decent person. Someone will have sex with you. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Well, and that's the other one too, which they kind of glossed over, was how quickly everyone went to Middle Eastern. And then it's like, oh, yet again, it's a white guy. It's a young white guy, military. And that was the other thing the FBI was saying. And they were like, oh, he has a military haircut. It was almost a little bit like, oh, shit, Like, no, we cannot point the finger at Middle Eastern. I mean, this is you. This is us.
Well, and let's be clear that this mass shootings that we have, 9 times out of 10, maybe more, maybe 99% of the time, it's a white guy.
Has it ever not been a white guy?
Well, there was a mass shooting down in was it Riverside or near Riverside, where the man was actually born here, I think, but he was of Middle Eastern descent and he'd kind of been radicalized on the internet. That's the only one that I can remember in recent memory. All the rest are like these disgruntled white men.
Yeah. All these young white guys who are
young or old, but mostly young.
And, and lost. And right. I mean, so the bombing trial was in 1997. The verdict of death penalty he got on June 2nd. And then this whole, it's interesting because all this happened very quickly, right? So the trial, and then
that's fast for a big federal trial like that.
And he died by lethal injection on June 11th, 2001. So, I mean, it's almost like, did he not use? Usually, it takes 10 years. People are on death row for a long time, but he was only there from 95 to 01.
Well, it is a federal case. They move faster. They have more resources. But also, too, I don't know how much he fought it. I mean, obviously, his lawyers are obligated to do what they have to do, or, the federal public defenders. But that is fast.
Yeah.
That is really, really fast. And he was one of the first people to be put to death in a long time. I remember that.
Yeah.
It had been many years. But good riddance. I mean,
so we hear a little bit about, right, we talked about Michael Fortier, did 10 years. Nichols is in a supermax prison in Colorado.
Doing multiple life sentences.
Carl, the doctor, now sells real estate. The one that was really nice is Renee, who lost her son, Antonio, sorry. She had another son, and he was born the same day as Antonio. And she said, I was a helicopter mom for a while, but he's 30 now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they have dinner every Sunday. So that's a happy ending, for as happy as it's going to be.
Yeah.
For her.
That's just so heartbreaking how she was thinking of her baby, because it started raining that night, and thinking, because it took them a while to find the children from the rubble, and they hadn't found them, and it was cold and raining. She was thinking, I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's really awful. Really, really awful. Because she talks about how realizing where the bomb was, like, wait, where was the bomb? You know, and Renee being like, and running.
Because she worked like down the street. And so she put him in that daycare so she could go see him on her lunch break every day.
Yeah.
God.
Unbelievable.
So, we talked about Amy. Michael Fortier pled guilty to failing to alert police. Over 10 years in prison. Now in federal witness protection. Yeah, that's wow. I mean, what a tragedy. I mean,
it is. For nothing. For nothing.
Well, no tragedies.
I know it's not worth anything.
But
I mean, geez, at least Kaczynski had a manifesto. You know, I mean, McVeigh didn't even bother writing anything down. I mean, what really? You know what I mean? It's a little bit like, it was just this, I think he just got this idea in his head, and he never thought for 1 second, like, what's the long-term thing? Because here's the thing. If you're so sloppy and you want to get caught, you do know that once you're in prison, people are going to start telling you what to do again, right? Timothy McVeigh. I mean, it's a little weird.
Well, I don't know.
I'm trying to make sense of something that's senseless.
Trying to put, exactly. There's no reasoning involved in this. This is a person who has no regard for human life whatsoever. And I don't know what he is. I don't know what his mental disorder is. I don't know what happened to him. I mean, lots of kids are bullied. I mean,
everybody's bullied. Who hasn't been bullied?
Yes. So that's not, and lots of kids go through awkward phases. Obviously he got tall. Look, in America, you just got to be tall and have a job, and you can just be like a decent guy, and you could get plenty of dates. I mean, Jesus, what? I don't know. Is he mentally ill? Is he, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm trying to look and see. I always get psychopath and sociopath mixed up, because there is a difference. Let's see. Well, so what they're saying is, although he was often portrayed in the popular press as a psychopath hell-bent on senseless revenge, psychiatrists correctly conclude that McVeigh, like most terrorists, was neither irrational nor deranged. So they're saying that he, did not, he wasn't a psychopath. It's not always accurate. People that have this, do these abhorrent acts aren't necessarily always psychopaths. But there's a difference between sociopath and psychopath. One is, one has no regard for human life at all, and they cannot be rehabilitated. And then the other can be. I have to figure out which one is which.
Well, whatever he was, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is a good documentary and very concise, hour and a half.
Probably a little too short. I mean, because there were some answers. I needed more answers about some things.
We could have used a little more information about his childhood and his life. And we didn't get anything about Nichols. And Nichols was he was equally as culpable, and he... so why did he do it? Why did he join up with McVeigh to do it? They really didn't address him at all.
Yeah. And also, right. I mean, Timothy McVeigh has been known, like, his name is connected to this, but not Nichols. And it sounds like McVeigh wouldn't have been able to make this bomb without Nichols. And it was almost like, well, he's the one that rented the truck and actually did the thing.
But they built the bomb at Nichols' house.
Yeah. So so why didn't Nichols get the death penalty? I mean, it seems like they're both culpable in the same amount, right? Fortier, I understand. I understand why you have to make a deal with him. I understand obviously he's culpable in some way, shape, or form, but not the same extent. But yeah, why wasn't Nichols put to death?
Well, it must be something in the federal statute about, because there's requirements for the death penalty, and they're different, federal, state, whatever. So unless you have to meet a certain criteria, so maybe he didn't meet the criteria because he wasn't present. He didn't help execute it. You know what I mean? Like he was part of the plot. He, helped build the bomb, and they did it on his property, but he didn't go to Oklahoma City and detonate the bomb. So they're just missing some element of what they need.
All right, here I found it. Sorry. Sociopaths and psychopaths both display challenging behavior, but differ significantly. Sociopaths tend to be impulsive and struggle to form stable relationships due to their volatile nature, while psychopaths, known for their manipulative tendencies, pose dangers due to profound lack of empathy and remorse. So people use those words interchangeably. Psychopaths have no empathy, no remorse at all. I think there's a lot of sociopaths operating amongst us. Like there's a lot more people that kind of fall under that category.
You mean just being impulsive and
and the other thing is, so they say psychopaths, they cannot, right? It cannot be helped. There's something about, I think people attribute that a little bit more to genetics, and then sociopaths can be depending, on their willingness to be reformed. They can be treated. So anywho, that's always, because I know people use those words interchangeably, but I would have liked a little bit more about like, who is Timothy McVeigh, what got him to where he is, what's happening, more about Nichols and all that. So, but it was much more about sort of the bombing itself, the people that survived it, what they went through. So,
right. And just remembering it. It's been 30 years, and, just to keep these stories alive, and, for people who are younger and even for us who we lived through, but apparently weren't paying any attention.
No, I mean, look at me. God.
You're like, what? Where's the manifesto? I'm waiting.
Yes.
I want to read the manifesto.
I kept waiting for the sketch artist to have this big beard or something. I'm like, wait a second. I'm a little off here. It's just, anyway.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, wrap it up, Brooke.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you listening. If you like our podcast, please make sure to subscribe and to also give us a 5-star rating and review. If you want extra content from us, we have a Patreon where we do a weekly bonus episode. We give you all of the free episodes ad-free. We have a tier where you can, in addition to the bonus episode, get a monthly true crime episode and a monthly Ask Us Anything bonus episodes. So go to patreon.com/psychlegalpodcast for that. And please, if you enjoy our podcast, share it with a friend. Yes. We also cover Sister Wives. Those episodes come out on Mondays. And we just started covering Poly Family.
The best show on television.
Oh my God.
If you have not seen the show, it's on TLC. And we're dropping those on Wednesdays because the show's on Tuesday nights.
Yes. So that's a new one we're covering. And we have a big catalog of podcasts about all kinds of different documentaries. If that's your thing. So check us out. Check out our past episodes. And thanks so much for listening.
Thank you. Bye.